Karen Whitfield's shrill voice cut through the peaceful suburban afternoon like a chainsaw through butter. "You can't be here. This is a private pool," she shouted, her manicured finger jabbing the air toward Marcus Johnson, who was floating peacefully on an inflatable lounger in his own backyard pool. Marcus lowered his sunglasses, confusion evident on his face. "Ma'am, this is my house. I live here." Karen's platinum blonde bob seemed to vibrate with indignation. She stood at the edge of his fence, clipboard in hand, her HOA badge gleaming in the sunlight like a sheriff's star in a Western showdown. "I am the president of the Sunny Pines Homeowners Association, and I don't recognize you as a resident," she snapped, already pulling out her phone. "I'm calling the police." Marcus sat up on his lounger, water dripping from his shoulders. "I moved in 3 weeks ago. 1542 Maple Drive. Check your records." Karen ignored him, already speaking into her phone with practiced urgency. "Yes, there's an unauthorized person using a pool in Sunny Pines. I need an officer immediately." From her vantage point of the decorative stepladder she brought specifically for neighborhood surveillance, Karen could see over most of the privacy fences in the development. This particular house had been vacant for months after the Johnsons moved to Florida. Or was it the Jacksons? It didn't matter. What mattered was that she hadn't approved any new residents, and certainly not. Well, she glanced at Marcus again, her lips thinning. 10 minutes later, 2 police cruisers pulled up outside Marcus's house. Karen rushed to meet them, her wedge sandals clacking against the sidewalk. "Officers, thank you for coming so quickly. The trespasser is back there," she said, pointing dramatically toward Marcus's backyard. Officer Rodriguez exchanged a look with his partner before addressing Karen. "Ma'am, we received a call about trespassing?" "Yes. He's using the pool without authorization. I've never seen him before in my life." The officers proceeded to Marcus's front door and rang the bell. Marcus, now wrapped in a towel, answered with his driver's license in hand. "Good afternoon, officers. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. I purchased this house 3 weeks ago." Karen pushed forward. "He's lying. I'm the HOA president, and I approve all new residents. There's been no approval." Officer Rodriguez examined Marcus' ID. "Sir, you have proof of residence?" Marcus nodded calmly. "Of course. Come in, I'll show you the closing documents." As the officers followed Marcus inside, Karen stood on the porch, fuming. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. As HOA president for 8 years running, nothing happened in Sunny Pines without her knowledge. Nothing. 5 minutes later, the officers emerged with apologetic expressions. "Ms. Whitfield," Officer Rodriguez began, "Mr. Johnson is indeed the legal owner of this property. There's no trespassing occurring here." Karen's face flushed scarlet. "That's impossible. I didn't approve any sale." "Ma'am, homeowners associations don't typically approve property sales. They might have rules about informing them, but they can't prevent legal transactions." Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But the bylaws clearly state." "Perhaps you should review those bylaws," Marcus suggested, stepping onto the porch. "And while you're at it, maybe remove that stepladder? It's a violation of my privacy." As the officers departed, Karen stood rooted to the spot, the first cracks appearing in her carefully constructed kingdom. By nightfall, Karen's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The Sunny Pines community Facebook group had exploded with activity, and for once, Karen wasn't controlling the narrative. "Did you see Diane's post?" her husband Ted asked, scrolling through his phone as Karen aggressively loaded the dishwasher. Apparently, one of the officers is friends with Marcus' cousin. The whole police department is talking about it. Karen slammed a mullet onto the rack. "It's a complete misunderstanding. I was doing my job protecting our community." By calling the police on a man swimming in his own pool, Karen whirled around. "Whose side are you on, Ted? I didn't know he was the new owner. Nobody informed me." Ted sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. "Karen, this is exactly what I've been talking about. You've taken this HOA thing too far." "Too far? I've maintained our property values. I've created a safe, orderly community. Do you know how much work that takes?" "I do, because you never talk about anything else," Ted muttered. Karen's phone dinged again, and she grabbed it. A notification from next door, calling all Sunny Pines residents. Emergency HOA meeting called for tomorrow, 7 p.m. "What?" Karen screeched. "I didn't call any meeting." She frantically tapped through to the post. It had been created by Victoria Zhang, the vice president of the HOA. "In light of today's unfortunate incident and multiple complaints about HOA leadership, we're holding an emergency meeting to discuss recent events and potential changes to our governance structure." Karen's hands shook as she called Victoria. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded when Victoria answered. "What needs to be done?" Victoria replied calmly. "This isn't the first complaint, Karen, but it's certainly the most serious. You can't call a meeting without me. I'm the president. Check the bylaws you're so fond of citing." The vice president can call emergency meetings with support from 2 board members. I have that support. Karen felt the floor shifting beneath her. This is insane. I was doing my job. Your job isn't to racially profile new homeowners and call the police on them, Victoria said bluntly. That is not what happened. It's how it looks, Karen, and perception matters. I'll see you tomorrow night. The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone in disbelief. Later that night, unable to sleep, Karen crept downstairs to the home office and pulled out the HOA bylaws, a thick binder she knew almost by heart. She flipped to the section on emergency meetings. Victoria was right. Karen closed the binder, a new feeling settling in her stomach. For the first time in 8 years, she wasn't in control, and tomorrow night she would face the consequences. Outside her window, the lights were still on at 1542 Maple Drive. The Sunny Pines Community Center buzzed with more energy than Karen had seen in years. Every folding chair was filled with latecomers lining the walls. Karen adjusted her blazer, painted on her most confident smile, and strode to the front of the room, taking her usual seat at the center of the board table. Victoria raised an eyebrow but said nothing as she called the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, Victoria began. We're here to address concerns about yesterday's incident involving our HOA president and one of our newest residents, Marcus Johnson. All eyes shifted to Marcus, who sat quietly in the third row. Before we begin, Karen interrupted, standing up, I'd like to apologize for any misunderstanding. As HOA president, resident safety is my top priority and… Oh, save it, Karen. The voice came from Dorothy Miller, an 82-year-old who lived in Sunny Pines since it was built. We all know what happened. You saw a black man in a pool and assumed he was trespassing. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Karen's face burned. That is absolutely not true. I was simply following protocol for unrecognized residents. What protocol? Asked Jeff Chen from the back. You never questioned any of the white families who moved in. The Andersons last year? The Millers last month? Where was this protocol then? Karen felt sweat beading along her hairline. That's different. I was informed about those sales ahead of time. Actually, Marcus spoke up, his voice measured. I sent an email to the HOA account 3 weeks ago, introducing myself as the new owner. I have the set receipt. Victoria nodded. We received it. I personally welcomed Marcus on behalf of the board. Karen's mouth fell open. I never saw that email. Because you blocked his address, Victoria said quietly, sliding a printout across the table. After he inquired about installing solar panels last week, the room erupted. Karen stared at the evidence in horror. She had blocked his email. She remembered now. She'd been annoyed about the solar panel request, which she planned to deny. I moved to vote on new HOA leadership, called a voice from the crowd. Seconded. Victoria raised her hands for quiet. According to our bylaws, we need a formal petition with 50 signatures to force a leadership vote. However, the board can vote to temporarily suspend an officer pending investigation. This is ridiculous, Karen sputtered. You're all overreacting to one simple mistake. Is it just one? Victoria challenged, producing a folder. I have documentation of 17 complaints about your conduct in the past year alone. Discriminatory enforcement of rules, harassment. Unauthorized entry onto private property, yes, that's the platter, constitutes invasion of privacy. You've been building a case against me. Karen gasped, betrayal slicing through her. I've been doing my due diligence as vice president, Victoria corrected. Now shall we vote on temporary suspension? The board vote was unanimous, 6-0 for suspension. Karen watched in stunned silence as her kingdom crumbled. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus approached her. Ms. Whitfield, I don't want to be your enemy. I just want to live in my home in peace. Karen couldn't meet his eyes. This isn't over, she muttered, grabbing her purse and pushing past him. Outside in the parking lot, she sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, a storm of emotions churning within her. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? Karen spent 3 days holed up in her house, blinds drawn, ignoring Ted's concerned glances and the constant buzz of neighborhood gossip. On the 4th day, she emerged with a plan. I'm going to sue them, she announced over breakfast, causing Ted to choke on his coffee. The HOA board, Victoria, all of them. For defamation and wrongful removal. Ted set down his mug carefully. Karen, you weren't removed. You were suspended pending investigation. Same thing. They humiliated me in front of the entire neighborhood based on lies and manipulated evidence. What evidence was manipulated? You admitted you blocked Marcus's email. Karen waved dismissively. A simple oversight. And they turned it into some kind of racial witch hunt. Ted studied his wife with growing concern. 25 years of marriage, and he'd never seen her like this, a dangerous combination of humiliation and righteous indignation. Before you call a lawyer, he suggested carefully, maybe try to make amends. Apologize to Marcus sincerely, admit your mistake to the board. Apologize? Karen scoffed. That would be admitting guilt. No, I'm going to expose Victoria for what she really is, a power-hungry opportunist who's been waiting for years to take my position. That afternoon, Karen drove to the office of Stanley Grimes, the attorney who had handled their house closing years ago. She laid out her case with meticulous detail, presenting herself as the victim of a neighborhood coup. Stanley listened patiently, making occasional notes. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Whitfield, I understand you're upset, but I don't see grounds for a lawsuit here. The board followed proper procedures according to your HOA bylaws. But the way they portrayed me, they presented factual evidence. Your own actions are the issue here, not their response to them. Karen stood up, gathering her papers. If you won't help me, I'll find someone who will. Back home, Karen switched tactics. If legal action wouldn't work, she'd fight fire with fire. She created a new Facebook account under a pseudonym and started a group called Truth About Sunny Pines OA, where she began posting selective screenshots of old board conversations, presenting Victoria and other board members in the worst possible light. She was careful using a VPN, never posting from her home network. By evening, the group had 20 members, mostly from neighboring communities who love drama. Meanwhile, Karen began digging through years of HOA records stored in her home office. There had to be something she could use against Victoria, a rule violation, an ethical lapse, anything. At midnight, she found it. 3 years ago, Victoria had approved a backyard pergola for the diocese without getting Karen's signature. A technical violation of procedure. Not much, but a start. What are you doing? Ted asked, finding her surrounded by papers at 2 a.m. Research, Karen replied without looking up. This isn't healthy, Karen. You need to let it go. She finally met his gaze, her eyes feverish with determination. Would you let it go if your entire reputation was destroyed overnight, if everything you built was taken away based on one mistake? Ted sat beside her, placing a hand on hers. It wasn't just one mistake, though, was it? You've been making people uncomfortable for years. I tried to tell you. Karen pulled her hand away. If you're not going to support me, at least stay out of my way. Ted stood up slowly. I don't recognize you anymore, he said quietly and left the room. Karen barely noticed, already formulating her next move. Victoria had messed with the wrong woman. The annual Sunny Pines Summer Barbecue had always been Karen's crowning achievement, a perfectly orchestrated community event with assigned seating, scheduled activities, and her award-winning coleslaw as the centerpiece. This year, suspended from her duties, she wasn't even on the planning committee. Karen watched from her kitchen window as volunteers set up tables in the community park. Victoria directed operations with clipboard in hand, looking far too comfortable in what should have been Karen's role. We should go, Ted said, appearing behind her. Show everyone you're taking this gracefully. Absolutely not. I refuse to stand around making small talk while Victoria parades around in my position. Ted sighed. It's been 2 weeks, Karen. People are moving on. Maybe you should too. But Karen wasn't moving on. Her anonymous Facebook group had grown to 50 members, with increasingly vicious gossip about board members. She'd driven by Marcus's house daily, documenting minor infractions, a garbage can left out too long, grass half an inch above regulation height. Just before the barbecue started, Karen made her decision. She changed into her most flattering sundress, applied fresh makeup, and grabbed her coleslaw from the refrigerator. You're coming after all? Ted asked, surprised but relieved. Someone needs to save this event from Victoria's incompetence, Karen replied, her smile not reaching her eyes. As they arrived at the park, conversations stuttered and heads turned. Karen moved through the crowd with practiced poise, greeting neighbors as if nothing had changed. Some returned her smiles awkwardly. Others openly glared. She spotted Marcus chatting with the Chens and made a beeline for him, Ted trailing nervously behind. Marcus, so lovely to see you fully integrated into our community, Karen said loudly, extending her hand. I brought my famous coleslaw. You simply must try it. Marcus looked momentarily startled but recovered quickly. Thank you, Ms. Whitfield. That's very kind. Please call me Karen, and I want to apologize again for our misunderstanding. Water under the bridge, I hope. Before Marcus could respond, Victoria appeared at his side. Karen, I didn't expect to see you here. I wouldn't miss our community tradition, Karen replied sweetly, though I noticed several deviations from the usual program. No assigned seating, activities starting late. Victoria's smile tightened. We're trying a more relaxed approach this year. People seem to be enjoying it. Indeed, the atmosphere was noticeably more lively than previous years. Children ran freely between tables, adults mingled instead of sitting in predetermined groups, and the food table featured diverse offerings beyond the usual potluck standards. Karen placed her coleslaw on the table and circulated, dropping subtle criticisms disguised as helpful observations. The trash bins should really be more accessible. I always found name tags helpful. In previous years, we never had issues with flies. As the event progressed, Karen's comments grew less subtle. When Victoria announced the start of the traditional three-legged race, Karen loudly remarked that the rope being used wasn't regulation size and posed a serious safety hazard. "Karen," Ted whispered urgently, "you're making a scene." "I'm protecting our community standards," she hissed back. The final straw came during Victoria's brief welcome speech. "And I want to thank everyone for embracing our new, more inclusive vision for Sunny Pines," Victoria was saying. "Inclusive meaning what, exactly?" Karen called out. "Abandoning the standards that made this neighborhood desirable in the first place?" A heavy silence fell over the gathering. "Karen," Victoria said evenly, "this isn't the time or place." "It's exactly the time and place. Everyone deserves to know how you engineered my removal to push your own agenda." Ted placed a restraining hand on her arm. "That's enough." Karen shook him off, advancing toward Victoria. "You've wanted my position for years. Admit it. You use Marcus's situation as an excuse." Marcus stepped forward. "Ms. Whitfield, please don't use me to justify this behavior." "Oh, you're part of it too." Karen turned on him. "Moving in here, immediately challenging our rules with your solar panels, and you're swimming." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone started recording with their phone. Ted grabbed Karen's elbow firmly. "We're leaving. Now." As he steered her away, Karen caught glimpses of shocked faces, heads shaking in disapproval, and Marcus' expression of mingled pity and disgust. In the car, reality began to sink in. She had just confirmed every suspicion, validated every complaint against her. And worse, much worse, she had revealed the darkness inside herself that she always managed to disguise as enforcing the rules. The video of Karen's meltdown at the barbecue went viral faster than summer flu in a kindergarten class. By morning, local news stations had picked it up. By afternoon, national blogs were featuring it under headlines like "Ho Karen's Epic Pool Patrol Fallout." Karen sat at her kitchen table, staring at her phone as the view count climbed. Ted had slept in the guest room. When he came downstairs that morning, he placed a single piece of paper in front of her. The Sunny Pines Evo Award meeting minutes showing a unanimous vote for her permanent removal. "I'm going to stay with my brother for a while," Ted had said quietly. "I think we both need some space." Now alone in the house, Karen cycled through rage, self-pity, and crushing embarrassment. Her phone rang constantly, journalists, probably, or perhaps gleeful neighbors. She ignored them all. Around noon, a knock at the door startled her. Through the peephole, she saw Dorothy Miller, the 82-year-old who had been one of her most vocal critics at the emergency meeting. Karen considered pretending she wasn't home. Dorothy knocked again, more insistently. "I know you're in there, Karen. Your car's in the driveway." With a sigh, Karen opened the door. "If you come to gloat—" "Oh, hush," Dorothy interrupted, pushing past her with surprising strength for an octogenarian. "I've brought lunch. You probably haven't eaten." Indeed, Dorothy carried a casserole dish that smelled suspiciously good. Karen followed her to the kitchen, bewildered. "Why are you here, Dorothy? You called me a racist in front of the entire neighborhood." Dorothy set down the dish and turned to face Karen. "I called you out on racist behavior. There's a difference. Hide Matt." "Save it," Dorothy said, raising a wizened hand. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 40 years. I watched it change from all white to beautifully diverse, and I watched you try to control those changes with your clipboard and your rules." Karen sank into a chair. "I was maintaining standards." "Standards," Dorothy scoffed. "Like when you cited the Garcias for their excessive holiday decorations, or when you tried to ban Mr. Patel's cooking because the smell was disruptive, or yesterday when you basically accused Marcus of conspiring against you for having the audacity to swim in his own pool and want solar panels." Put that way, Karen's actions took on a different light. She stared at her hands, unable to meet Dorothy's eyes. "Why are you here?" she asked again, softer this time. Dorothy bustled around the kitchen, finding plates and forks. "Because I'm 82 years old and I've seen enough people double down on their mistakes to last me a lifetime. It's exhausting." She placed a serving of casserole in front of Karen. "And because 40 years ago I was you." Karen looked up, startled. "Oh, yes," Dorothy nodded, serving herself. "When the first black family moved onto this street in 1984, I complained about their children being too loud. I reported their barbecues for smoke violations. I was terrible, and I was terrified, though I wouldn't have admitted it then. What changed? Their daughter fell off her bike in front of my house and broke her arm. I called the ambulance and sat with her until it came. Her name was Yvette. She was 7 and missing her front teeth, and she asked me if I hated her family because they were black." Dorothy's eyes grew distant with memory. "The shame I felt in that moment, it changed me. Not overnight, but it started something." Karen picked at her food. "It's too late for me. Everyone hates me now." It's never too late to change, Karen. But it has to be real. No fake apologies or saving face. You have to look hard at yourself and do the work. After Dorothy left, Karen sat alone in her quiet house. For the first time in years, she had no meetings to attend, no violations to document, no neighbors to monitor. The emptiness was terrifying. She picked up her phone and instead of checking the latest outrage about her online, she typed unconscious bias into the search bar. Then, after a moment's hesitation, she added the word books. 2 weeks after the barbecue incident, Karen sat in her car outside Marcus Johnson's house, rehearsing what she would say. 3 false starts had left her still in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to herself. "Just do it." She'd spent the past fortnight in intensive self-education, reading books, watching documentaries, and even attending a community workshop on racial bias at the library one town over, where nobody knew her face from viral videos. Ted had called twice, brief conversations that ended with, "I need more time." The house felt cavernous without him. Finally, Karen gathered her courage and approached Marcus's front door. She rang the bell before she could change her mind. When Marcus answered, his expression shifted from surprise to wariness. "Ms. Whitfield, this is unexpected. I know, and I understand if you'd rather not speak to me, but I've come to apologize properly this time." Marcus studied her for a moment, then opened the door wider. "Would you like to come in? I just make coffee." His kitchen was warm and inviting, with family photos displayed prominently on the refrigerator. Karen perched awkwardly on a bar stool while Marcus poured coffee into 2 mugs. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Karen began carefully, "about my behavior, not just toward you, toward many neighbors over the years. I realize now that what I called maintaining standards was often just controlling and exclusionary." Marcus nodded but remained silent, giving her space to continue. "I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know I'm truly sorry for the way I treated you. It was wrong and it came from biases I'm only now beginning to recognize." "That couldn't have been easy to say," Marcus remarked, his expression softening slightly. "Thank you." "I don't expect forgiveness," Karen added quickly. "I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to change." Marcus sipped his coffee thoughtfully. "Change is hard. What's made you want to try?" Karen considered the question. "Losing everything, my position, my reputation, possibly my marriage, but also the look on your face that day at the barbecue. It wasn't anger. It was pity. That hit me harder than all the online hate." They talked for nearly an hour. Karen learned that Marcus was a pediatric surgeon, that he moved to Sunny Pines for the good schools ahead of his sister and her children potentially joining him, that he'd chosen this specific house for the backyard pool because he taught swimming lessons to children with disabilities on weekends. As the conversation wound down, Karen hesitantly shared her latest idea. "I'm thinking of starting a neighborhood welcoming committee, not affiliated with the HOA, just neighbors welcoming neighbors. No enforcement, no rules, just connection." "That sounds positive," Marcus said, "though you might face some skepticism given your history." "I know. I thought maybe, well, I wondered if you might consider being part of it. Your perspective would be valuable, and honestly, your presence might help others give it a chance." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Are you asking me to be your token black friend to show you changed?" Karen flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, that was inappropriate." To her surprise, Marcus laughed. "I'm teasing you, Karen. Partially, anyway. I appreciate that you're trying, but yes, you still have work to do." As Karen prepared to leave, Marcus walked her to the door. "One piece of advice: any amends you're making should start with your husband. From what I've heard, he's been your biggest supporter despite everything." Karen nodded, a lump forming in her throat. "You're right. Thank you for listening today." "Thank you for taking the first step," Marcus replied. "It matters." Driving home, Karen felt lighter than she had in weeks. The road ahead was long, her reputation in tatters, her future uncertain. But for the first time, she was facing the right direction. That evening, she called Ted and asked if they could meet for dinner. It was time to extend her amends to the person who deserved them most. 6 months after the infamous pool incident, Sunny Pines held its annual holiday festival in the community center. Snowflake decorations hung from the ceiling, a massive tree twinkled in the corner, and tables groaned under the weight of potluck contributions. Karen stood near the entrance, greeting new arrivals alongside Marcus and Victoria. The Neighborhood Welcome Committee, now 15 members strong, had taken over festival organizing duties from the HOA, resulting in the most diverse and well-attended community event in Sunny Pines history. "The Patels are here," Marcus noted, waving to the family entering the hall. "Their samosas were the highlight last year. And the Garcias brought their famous tamales," Victoria added. Mrs. Garcia said she doubled the recipe after running out last time. Karen smiled, watching the room fill with neighbors of various backgrounds, ages, and cultures, many of whom she previously cited for violations. The transformation in community spirit was palpable. and though Karen couldn't take credit for it, she took pride in being part of the change. Ted appeared at her side, handing her a cup of punch. The diversity panel is all set up for tomorrow. The library said they had record registrations. Karen squeezed his hand gratefully. Their reconciliation had been gradual, weekly dinners that evolved into Ted moving back home, attending therapy together, rebuilding trust step by step. He'd been her anchor during the darkest moments of public criticism and private self-reckoning. Did I mention Marcus was asked to join the hospital board? Karen said. Apparently someone sent an anonymous letter recommending him. Ted's eyes twinkled. How mysterious. Almost as mysterious as those anonymous donations to the community garden project. Karen shushed him playfully. Her financial contributions to neighborhood improvements remained private, not for credit, but because the work itself mattered more than recognition. Across the room, Dorothy Miller waved from where she sat with several other seniors. At 83, she'd become Karen's unlikely mentor, meeting weekly for coffee and candid conversations that often left Karen uncomfortable, but always wiser. Karen, called a voice. Diane Chen approached with a tall man in towel. This is my cousin Wei from Chicago. He just moved in on Oak Street. The welcome committee basket was such a nice surprise. Karen extended her hand warmly. Welcome to Sunny Pines, Wei. Please let us know if you need anything at all. As the evening progressed, Karen found herself in a quiet moment of reflection by the refreshment table. Penny for your thoughts, Marcus asked, joining her. Just thinking about how different everything is from last year. Myself included. Marcus nodded. Growth isn't linear, you know. You'll still have moments where old habits try to resurface. Like yesterday, when I almost left a note about the Hendersons' holiday lights being too bright. Karen admitted with a self-deprecating smile. Exactly. But you caught yourself. I did. And then I went over and told them how beautiful their display looked instead. The sound of silverware tapping against glass drew everyone's attention. Victoria stood in the center of the room. Before we continue our festivities, I'd like to propose a toast, she announced. To our community, not perfect, but perfectly committed to growing together. Glasses raised around the room, and Karen felt a swell of emotion as several neighbors met her eyes with genuine warmth that would have been unthinkable months ago. Later, as the event wound down, Karen helped stack chairs alongside Dorothy. You know, Dorothy mused, communities are living things. They reflect who we are, both the good and the bad. Karen nodded. I used to think my job was to control this place. Now I realize it's about contributing to it. An important difference, Dorothy agreed. So what's next for you? I heard the school board has an opening. Karen laughed. One step at a time. I'm still learning how to be a good neighbor before I try to lead anything again. As they walked out into the winter evening, snow beginning to dust the sidewalks, Karen looked back at the community center, lights glowing, laughter still audible, a place of genuine connection rather than enforced conformity. The woman who had called the police on a black man in his own pool 6 months ago wouldn't recognize this version of Karen Whitfield or this version of Sunny Pines. But transformation, Karen had learned, was not about erasing the past. It was about using it to build a better future. Ready to head home? Ted asked, appearing beside her with their coats.